His own parents didn't believe him. This happened to my friend G, back in the 1960s. He was 14 to 15 years old, in high school, in a small West Coast town, USA. G was a small, easygoing kid. He did some work, cutting lawns or something, for his neighbor rich douche, same age. And of course RD stiffed him. G's parents complained to RD's parents, who couldn't believe their little perfect son would ever do such a thing. There were a couple of other incidents. Mostly RD stealing credit at school for work G had done, or general bullying. But RD was a suck-up as well as a weasel, and nothing ever happened. He wasn't even suspected. Key point, RD had an electric typewriter, rare in high school, and bragged about it and showed off his efforts. He claimed to get better grades on typed papers. So, revenge. Like most of the houses in the town in that bygone era, security was minimal. It was easy to slip in an unlocked window, so that's what G did when the house was empty. He brought a little file with him, and filed a little off the bar of the E character on the typewriter. Just enough to make it unique. Then he, slowly, typed up a page. G didn't type, so it was Hunt and Beck. The page started with "Haha, the stupid teacher never reads this far. He's a real dickface." And continued for a full page. It used every dirty word he could think of, and especially insulted the vice president, in charge of the teachers. He then left with this piece of paper, leaving everything else untouched. Several weeks later, RD had typed another paper. It was paper clipped together per requirements. G somehow managed to distract either him or the teacher, and slid his special sheet in the middle. RD failed the class, though he'd been getting good grades up to that point. He appealed to the vice president. The extra insults directed VP's way made the VP allow the teacher's grade. RD claimed that someone else must have typed that. But upon closer examination, the modified E character matched on all pages, and didn't match any other typewriter. Checkmate. His own parents didn't believe him. Once they started looking, they found a lot more bad behavior that they'd ignored, and RD ended up in military school. Not the place you wanted to be in the 1960s. Edit. To answer a few questions from the comments. Yes, G is real. He is 65 now. You still don't want to screw him over. Beat him fair and square, no problem. Need to renegotiate? Okay, things happen, he will work with you. But don't try to cheat him. He plays a long game better than anyone I've ever met. This paper was the catalyst, not the cause, of RD's downfall. The parents started looking at other complaints about their perfect little boy with a different eye and found he wasn't so perfect. I don't know the details, or even if G ever learned them. But there was definitely more evidence and incidents than this one. This was the incident he couldn't talk his way out of. Yes, it was probably Perry Mason mysteries that gave G the typewriter idea. G was born in 1952, so this would have happened in 1966-67. Yes, RD's parents, paid their son to mow the lawn, trying to build responsibility in their kid. I think it was $5 back when you could buy a candy bar for a nickel, 5 cents, and a comic book for a dime, 10 cents. He offered the same $5 to G, then stiffed him. That was the last straw for G, because general douchebaggery on RD's part had been happening for years. G didn't know what happened to RD. Hopefully he learned some honor in military school and cleaned up his act. Now to the comments. Old school revenge, I like it. Literally old school. I see it. I feel like a lot of pro-revenge in the 60s ended up in military school. My only question here, why would 14-year-old RD be the one hiring 14-year-old G to mow his parents' lawn? Maybe his parents told him to do it as a chore, so he just hired another kid and then didn't pay him. Sounds like something a 14-year-old rich douche would do. Nice work, G. Sawantakal. Also, that's pretty hardcore. Is this a Sawantakal story? Edit, or a similar sounding one? He often talks about a friend named G. And now RD is president, bragging that he felt more militaristic than any military guy for having been in military school. Who's laughing now? Where did kids end up after military school? If RD ended up enlisting afterward, he theoretically might have died in the Vietnam War if he got sent off. Which would mean old G's trick literally killed RD. G's trick uncovered a lot of behavioral issues. So they noticed the E but none of the other characters? How did he know they would specifically go for the E? Filing off the E would make it different than the mounds of homework that had been turned in prior to that. Why was he doing RD's yard work? I imagine if they were going to hire another kid to do it, RD's dad would pay for it, and not have his son act as a financial middleman. This sub is the no sleep of true stories. The fact that the mods now get pissy if anyone challenges the validity of this shit just adds to how stupidly over the top they are. Is it weird that my first thought after reading this was, I hope that Rich Douche didn't die in Vietnam? Yeah, he was kind of a dick. But he didn't quite deserve that. Military high school does not mean you go into military service, unless you go for other reasons of course. So if he went to Vietnam, he would have been going anyway. At the same time I'd say it's likely that if he graduated from military school during Vietnam he was probably heavily encouraged to enlist, if not drafted. Great revenge. And filed a little off the bar of the E character on the typewriter. Just enough to make it unique. What does it mean? Each key has a corresponding arm, or with electrics, a character ball, with the character of the press's key in a mirror image. When the key is struck the arm moves and strikes an ink ribbon which transfers the character to the page. Because the arm/ball is metal, the raised character can be filed in such a way that makes it unique to that specific typewriter, making it easier to track which typewriter made the page. Police have used this in the past to figure out who/what wrote the document. As they were mass-produced, each typewriter varies slightly from type space, margins, slight offsets between letters etc. etc. Each typewriter has its own unique fingerprint, and now I feel old. You know you're old when you understood exactly what OP meant at first read through. Due to going to military school, RD was part of the first wave of soldiers sent to Vietnam. He died there. Don't ever duck with a real G. And that boy was named Douglas Niedermeyer. Honest question, is military school an appealing place to go now? I live in Australia, and I don't think we have them here, but I sent a few of my kids to military school in The Sims, and it didn't seem like a good thing then. Has anything changed since? Are some areas so bad that rather than face a local education, people will go to military school instead? Seeing as I'm on the subject, what do they even teach at military school? Is it the same as regular school? If not, how is it different? No, it's still a disciplinary move. What is appealing, is when you get to college or university a lot of kids participate in ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. Basically you get free, or severely reduced, tuition in exchange for 3, or 4 with a scholarship, years of service in a generally very cushy military job. These kids won't be on the front lines or in any true danger. That's interesting. I have a friend here who is in the ADF and is just about to finish what he calls officer training. I think it must be a similar thing.